Hello, my name is Erin Crittenden and welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope your week has gone incredibly well, and if not, I hope this video makes it a little bit brighter because today we are going to dive into the world of canon events, non-canon events, crossovers, ships, and creative interpretation. That's right, we're talking about fan fiction. Some people consider fan fiction a lesser form of writing, but I personally disagree. Fan fiction has a ton of useful benefits, which we will get into later, and it is a wonderful way to expand a world that you're already familiar with. In fact, one of the first full-length stories that I ever attempted to write was a Star Trek fan fiction. It was a self-insert, meaning the main character was based on myself, and she was a young science officer assigned to the Enterprise and somehow managed to date Wesley Crusher because I was an early teen and I had a crush on him when I wrote this. I understand now that that is the wrong decision, but it was what I was working with at the time. I wish I could find it because it was one of my favorite pieces that I'd ever written, but unfortunately I saved it to a floppy drive. And if you don't know what a floppy drive is, that's okay. Ask somebody older than you, they'll know. But I saved it to a floppy drive, and then I moved houses, and it's gone. I don't know where it is. I wish I could find it, though, because it was my first real venture into writing, and I was really proud of it. I am still really proud of it, what I remember of it. And I would like to have it back and to hopefully, revamp it a little bit. But that is one of the downsides to fan fiction is it can get lost. And it is an unfortunate state of affairs. But fan fiction was my first real attempt at storytelling. And I have since written several other small pieces of fan fiction. I have one based on the Avengers because I'm kind of a Marvel nerd. I love Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I have one, it's another self-insert because I have a problem and I like to be in the story. But it's based on the Avengers and it's set somewhere between the Avengers and Age of Ultron because I like my stories to sit in the middle of things. And if you have a large cinematic universe like with Marvel or with DC or with Star Trek, sticking things in between the canon events, the episodes, it's pretty much the way that I believe fan fiction should run. Because if it's already established and if there's already media of it, it's okay to twist that media a little bit. But if you put it in between the stories, you have so much more creative freedom. But I have the Avengers. I have a couple of X-Men fanfics. I have half a page of a John Constantine fanfic from Hellblazer. And I have a couple of supernatural pieces that never really went anywhere. But the point is that I write fan fiction. I don't publish it anywhere. I don't know if I ever will publish it anywhere. But it's a great way for me to kind of get out of my own head and work with something that I already know. And I think it's that way for a lot of writers. Some writers treat fan fiction as their only creative outlet, and that's okay. It's okay. You're not always going to be able to come up with something new. And having something to work off of can really be a benefit. That being said, let's go into the pros and cons of fan fiction as I understand them. It's fine if you have other ideas or if you have other experiences, but this video is to give you some information on fan fiction as I understand it, as someone who writes it, as someone who reads it, and as somebody who enjoys the forms. Let's start with the pros of fan fiction. In my opinion, fan fiction is one of the best ways for writers to hone their skills. Because when you have characters and settings and situations that are already known and you're already familiar with, that gives you the incredible freedom to work on your character development, your dialogue, your descriptors, pretty much anything you need outside of the main trilogy of story writing. So picking up a piece of fan fiction or writing a piece of fan fiction is one of the best ways that you can hone your skills. And people have honed their skills. There are some examples that I'll get into later where fan fiction evolves into something more. But honing your skills through a piece of media that doesn't really have any consequences is incredibly liberating. And it lets you play with styles. It lets you play with genres. Maybe you're a romance writer and you want to dive into comedy. You can do that. Maybe you're a mystery writer and you want to dive into romance. You can do that. Like, you can write anything outside of your norm through fan fiction because you have that freedom. Another benefit to fan fiction is that it gives you a chance to build your readership, and it teaches you how to take critiques. Because if you publish your fiction on a site like Wattpad or AO3 or fandom.net, you're going to get feedback on it. You're going to have people who read it and say, hey, this is fantastic. I love it. Please write more. Or you're going to have people that say, hey, this doesn't make any sense, or this is written badly. Like, how can we fix it? And it is a great way to learn how to take critiques and how to take compliments and kind of get a feel for what the reader is looking for in that particular genre. Because if you are writing for romance, but you put a little too much of drama in it or a little too much comedy, then the romance readers aren't going to be interested because that's not what they came for. And so by using the fan fiction platforms, you can learn how to adapt to the reader's needs and how to take the criticisms. Because when you branch out on your own and your editor comes back saying, hey, all this is wrong, it won't feel like the end of the world like it normally would, because you've already done that with your fan fiction. And again, fan fiction has very little consequences to your writing career, because if you use it to hone your skills and to learn, then anything you do outside of that, you've already handled. It's already done. So that's another reason I really like fan fiction, because it lets you gather that information that only experience can provide. Because unless you send your work into a field like that, you're never going to know what people think about it. And you're never going to know how people feel about it. And I'm not saying that you have to take every criticism to heart. There are people who are going to hate on it just to hate on it. I've had experiences with that before. And you have to learn how to discern between the true haters and the people who are trying to help with constructive criticism. So any criticism you get, take with a grain of salt, because this is your story and you decide how it plays out. And if somebody is criticizing a choice that you made, you can think, well, is this actually the right choice, or should I listen to this person? And if it's the right choice for the story that you were trying to convey, then ignore them. It's fine to ignore criticism. The last pro that I want to talk about is more from a reader standpoint, but fan fiction is completely free. You can sign up for AO3, you can sign up for Wattpad, you can sign up for fandom.net, you can sign up for any of those fan fiction sites, Tumblr. Any of them are free to sign up for, and you can read as much fan fiction as your little heart desires. And I personally love that, because I have spent way too much money on books, as my family will tell you. But having that freedom there to just hop in the app or hop in the website and do a little reading in your spare time to get your mind off of the world is a huge benefit, because we all need a little distraction. And when we're looking for comfort that's outside the normal realm, we go to fan fiction. For example, if I want to read, let's say, a fluffy piece about, Sherlock Holmes, I'd go to fan fiction because we know that Sherlock Holmes is not fluffy canonically. And he has the capacity to be, or if I want to read a romance piece between two characters from, let's say, let's just go with a well-known. Let's say two characters from the X-Men. If I want to read a romance piece about their relationship, I would go to fan fiction because the movies don't give us a whole lot of context, and I don't have enough of the comics to really say, this episode of that, or this issue or that issue is the one I want. So it's a great place to find your comfort characters and find your comfort scenarios, but in new situations that the author might not have even thought of or wanted to think of, depending on how you twist it. So from a reader standpoint, having the freedom to go in and just read as much fan fiction as possible is a huge benefit. Unfortunately, there are also some downsides to fan fiction. The first one being that fan fiction lives almost exclusively on the internet. And that means it can disappear at a moment's notice, or it can change at a moment's notice. I've had experience with this. There was a really good Sherlock Holmes fan fiction based off of the BBC series, and I saved it. I went back to read it, and it's different. Like, the author changed it. And I don't have that same comfort anymore that I used to. Actually, the author either changed it or I was reading a different one because I can't find the original one. But either way, the one that I fell in love with is gone. I can't find it anywhere. And I have searched, all the sites. I've looked all the keywords, and it's gone. So that is one of the biggest downsides, is that you can find a piece that you absolutely love. You can save it to all your profiles. You can have it bookmarked, and it could still disappear. Either the author could change it, or the author could take it down. The website itself could disappear. That's happened before. Or just the author decides to take it all down and move on. It's an unfortunate side effect of living in a digital age, is that there's no physical copies of any of this fan fiction. But there is a good reason for that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it's tragic whenever you find that piece of literature that really impacted you, and then it's just gone, and there's a hole there that you can't really fill the same. So that's one of the biggest downsides. Another downside is that fan fiction is incredibly oversaturated. Unless you know the name of the author, the name of the piece, or you have a link directly to the story that you want to go, you're going to spend hours sifting through all of the stories that have the same tags, the same characters, sometimes the same plot lines. Like, it's a lot. There's a lot to go through. And like I said, there's fan fiction for every piece of media in the world, and in pretty much every language. So there's a lot of sifting to go through if you don't have the specifics. Like, you can't just sit there and scroll and scroll and scroll when you're really craving that one piece. So that can be a turnoff for fan fiction, is just the knowledge that you're going to have to search through so many identical pieces to find the one you want. There is a chance you find something better. I'm not saying that's not a possibility. There is a chance that you find something worse. There are good and bad fan fiction writers, just as there are good and bad traditional writers. But having to sift through all of that just to get to a comfort piece is too much, in my opinion. Because if I'm craving a specific story or a specific scenario, having to sift through all of the similar ones and not quite hitting that mark is incredibly frustrating. So that is another unfortunate downside of fan fiction, is that you will have to search unless you know for a fact what it's called, who wrote it, or have a link to the site. The final downside that I want to talk about is one that might seem counterintuitive, but bear with me. Fan fiction is free. That is the downside. No matter how good your writing is, no matter how many readers you have or how many followers you have, you can never make money off of your fan fiction. And the reason is that legally, you do not own it. If you are writing fan fiction piece about the Avengers, then the studio who owns the Avengers, which I believe is Disney now, they own the rights to all of that. And they own the rights to your story. So if you ever try to commercialize it and sell it and make some money off of it as a fan fiction, you're going to get into some legal trouble. And I personally don't have the money to fight off Disney lawyers. So you have to keep your fan fiction free. You have to keep it free and available to the public if you are publishing it. That does not mean that your fan fiction doesn't have to go anywhere. There are several authors whose traditionally published best-selling books started out as a fan fiction. And I will read those to you right now. Some names you already know, you've already heard of. Other names are probably going to surprise you because they surprised me when I was researching this. And yes, I did get a good bit of this list off of Reddit. I will link to the Reddit thread in the show notes so you can go check it out for yourself because there were a lot more names there that I didn't know of. But these are some of the big names that have taken their fan fiction, tweaked it just enough to get it out of the original fandom, and turned it into a best-selling book. The first one you already probably know, it's 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James. That originally started out as a Twilight fan fiction. Let's just let that sink in for a minute. It was a Twilight fan fiction based off Edward Cullen. She tweaked the names, she twisted the plot just a little bit, and now it's regarded as an erotic classic. I personally have not read it. I don't plan to. I don't plan to watch the movies. But a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, have picked up her book and have picked up her series. And that all began because of Twilight fanfic. The next author is Cassandra Clare, who wrote The City of Bones, which is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. And that book started out as a Harry Potter fanfic. It started out as a fic, I believe, between Ginny Weasley and Draco Malfoy. I think those were the two main characters were based off of. And she has an entire empire now because of a single fanfic and how she twisted it enough to bring it into the world on her own. Another one is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. It started out as a Star Wars fanfic, and I believe the main characters were based off of Kylo Ren and Rey, who are the newer generation of Jedi. And finally, we have His Royal Secret by Lilah Pace, which started out as an X-Men First Class fanfic. And I'm not sure who the characters are based off of, but it's really interesting to see how these prominent authors started out as lowly fanfiction writers. And it gives me hope for the future. It gives me hope for my own writing. Because I am working on a fantasy novel right now. And trying to come up with your own characters and situations and scenarios is hard. It's really hard. And technically, the novel that I'm writing could be considered a spin-off fanfiction because the setting is based on Skyrim, which is one of my favorite video games. And then the plot is an amalgamation of other things that I've seen, but with my own spin on it. So it's hard to create something completely new because there's a saying that there are no new ideas in the world, and that could be true. I don't know. But what matters is your take on it, how you spin the story and how you tell the story in your own way. So, but fan fiction is how you explore that, and it's how you want to learn and how you can grow enough to create something on your own. I started out with fan fiction. I still write fan fiction on occasion, or I will take a brain break and go read some of the stuff I've already written and then come back. Fan fiction is an underutilized writing tool, and it is a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge, and it should not be dismissed as lowly writing or as lesser than just because it's based on somebody else's work. Because there have been some fan fictions that I thought were novel worthy, and there have been some fan fictions that I can tell person might not have been the strongest writer. It's all in the perspective, and it's all in how you decide to use it. So that is my take on fan fiction. I believe it's beautiful. I love it. I will still write it. I probably won't publish it because I'm a coward, but writing it for myself and writing it for yourself is perfectly fine. You do not have to share your fan fiction with the world. You do not have to build a readership. You do not have to build unless you are ready to take that next step and to grow beyond what you're already doing. So, dust off those AO3 subscriptions, those Wattpad subscriptions, go back in, search for whatever you want, and you're going to find something interesting to read. Or, if you're a writer, pick it back up. There are a lot of unfinished fan fictions out there, and if you have an unfinished one, maybe go back and see what you can do to improve it or finish it, because some of us like to read, and a lot of us like having those familiar aspects to the story that we can rely on. But go experience fan fiction. It can be as PG as you want. It can be as X-rated as you want. It's everywhere, and you can find it anywhere. And there's even video fan fictions. Like, there's a lot of TikTok reels that are, you know, if so-and-so is your boyfriend or your relation or the scenario. Like, it's everywhere. You cannot escape fan fiction because it is one of the most prolific forms of writing, I believe, on the internet today. So go check it out. See what you think about it. I welcome any and all comments about your thoughts on fan fiction, what your favorite pieces are. If you write it, if you read it, I want to know. I want to know. I want to discuss this. But that is all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, for engaging. If you like this video, share it, subscribe for more. Videos posted every Friday, as long as I can remember. And I will see you next time.